All right, everybody, welcome into episode 82 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only sports broadcast that talks about both American and Brazilian sports. I'm Nick Coleb, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, of the United States of America, which, by the way, happy Juneteenth to all of those in the US of A. Third year that this is a federal holiday, first year that's a Tennessee state holiday, honoring the last slaves who learned of their freedom back in 1865. So definitely a meaningful day here. And joining us from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, the site of miracles is Gustavo Tomazeli. How are you?
Good, good. How are you, man? How are you? I'm doing fantastic. I feel like when kind of comparing is like when Tennessee 2019 got a win over the 2018 win over Auburn. You know that feeling when Tennessee went all
Mhm.
the way to Auburn, got that win that you know I know it was not like I guess the big decisive thing, but what's the feeling going on the road when anybody doubted, that was it. And this is I finally was able to put like a background like you, Real Bronco Stadium, but that was not the stadium. And I'm gonna talk about the whole experience of that game in down like later when we talk about Brazilian talks. But I guess definitely it was I call the survive weekend for both of our sports teams.
Absolutely, because the baseballs, the team I'm following really closely right now, the Tennessee Volunteers baseball team, they are currently in Omaha, Nebraska, and back at their second College World Series in 3 years. On Saturday night, unfortunately, they had to go up against probably the best pitcher in college baseball, and Paul Skeens. And that didn't go very well. Now they got down 5-0. They did score three in the top of the eighth to make it 5-3, but it just wasn't enough. They ended up losing 6-3, and they were in a do or die game today against Stanford. And Stanford's been a very good team all year. They fell behind 4-0 early in this game, and kind of similar to Southern Miss, you kind of wondered if this was another case of a season's over. Like if this was finally the time where the Tennessee baseball team their magical run was going to end. That was not the case. They ended up storming back in this one, winning it 6-4. And the Tennessee baseballs, after having a really awful first half of the season, now find themselves one of the last six teams left with a chance to win a national championship. Right now, they will play the loser of LSU and Wake Forest tomorrow. Is going to the top of the ninth inning in that game. LSU will have to score. They are down 3-2. Wake Forest just scored in the bottom of the eighth to take a 3-2 lead. LSU had runners in scoring position in the top of the eighth, but could not convert. So drama upcoming in Omaha, and I'll just say this on the balls. I mean, this team, winning their first game in Omaha in over 20 years is huge. It's a huge deal for the program because I mean it's going to be hard to get to the national title because you're going to have to win three straight games to get there. From this point, losing that opening game puts you in a severe hole. But winning a game in Omaha, I think, is huge because I think it would have become a very annoying talking point all off season. Tony Vitello can't win in Omaha. Our ceiling is just getting to Omaha. No, you can win in Omaha too. Now, how many more wins can they rack up in Omaha? We'll have to wait and see. But I think just winning this game today in Omaha, getting to the final six there, it's just massive for the program and shows that they are one step closer, maybe, to getting to that national championship and getting this program to the very top.
From from what I seen to the game, that was very briefly when I turned in. Tennessee was already up, I think by one run. But Chase Byrne, he's so electrifying. The way I know he wasn't pitching his best, but the way he electrifies his team and his teammates, it's contagious. I feel like his energy is incredible, and I'm of course against LSU, Tennessee. Having to rile back was hard, but he just showed this team can rile back. If LSU didn't work today, it did, and And if they have to rematch LSU again, they're gonna have to see where they couldn't got these opportunities, and they have to play it better.
Well, here's the deal. Like, I think we'll have the better pitcher this time because tomorrow we should be starting Drew Beam, and Drew Beam has been very good in this postseason. Had a great outing against Charlotte in the game that got us to the Super Regionals. Had a great outing last Monday night in Southern Mississippi that got us to the College World Series. Um, and LSU only has one Paul Skeens. Like, they have other good pitchers on their roster, but Paul Skeens is on a level of his own, and he can only use him once every couple of days. Um, do they roll him back out tomorrow? I seriously doubt it. Um, because I would think LSU would hope to get a rematch with Wake Forest here. Um, if they were to lose this game right now, a 2-2 count on the first batter. So definitely uh, we'll be monitoring the ending here of this game very closely. It looks like we got a strikeout. So one down. Wake Forest 2 outs away from advancing to effectively the Final Four in Omaha. Um, but because we've been debating this all day in my group chats. Who would you rather play, LSU or Wake Forest? And Wake Forest have been the number one team all year, but you got to think at the same time, their program hasn't been to the College World Series since 1955. They haven't even been that, you know, they haven't been in this position, and the number one seed has not won a College World Series since 1999. It has been extremely, extremely difficult. But this Wake Forest team, to give them the credit, they have been very well balanced. I mean, at Winston-Salem, they were throwing up 15, 20, 22 runs in a game. But here in Omaha, they've been trying to win these lower scoring games, and they're right now trying to win this one 3-2. They seem like they're a very, very well balanced team, and they'll definitely be a very tough team to take out. And that's why it's going to be very hard. Because think about for Tennessee, we're going to have to find a way to win 3 games between these two teams right here, and that's going to be difficult. And they just got another strikeout, so LSU's down to their final out. No one's on base. The Wake Forest fans are extremely excited. The LSU fans look dejected because you got to remember LSU is a college baseball powerhouse. This is their first trip to Omaha in 6 years. I believe they have like 7 national titles. So they are one of the teams that are like, we have to be in Omaha. They're like Kentucky in basketball. Like, this is one thing that we are really good at. And which makes the matchups with Tennessee so fascinating because Tennessee is this new blood that's come in, and it's really upset LSU fans because we approach college baseball in such a different way than they do. And see, 0-1 was that okay? 1-1. We're at a 1-1 count here with 2 outs to go. It'd be crazy if he mows them all down by 3 strikeouts. And it's going to be a hopper back to the pitcher. Out at first base. Wake Forest has won 3-2. The Vols will take on the Bayou Bengals for the second time in 4 nights. This time in an elimination match.
It's tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So Tennessee LSU in an elimination. LSU, frankly, should have won this game. They had every chance to win this game, but they could not make the plays in the 8th inning, especially when they needed to. Wake Forest was able to get that run home at the bottom of the 8th, and now LSU will have to face Drew Beam and the Vols tomorrow. And honestly, I think this is a great position for us to be in. Because of what I just said about LSU, they are the program with all the history, with all the expectations. I think all the pressure tomorrow in Omaha is on LSU. And I think Tennessee should go into this game with no pressure. I think the pressure for Tennessee was getting a win. Now tomorrow, just go out there and just play ball and see what happens.
Eh, And I mean, I feel like Tony Vitello wouldn't, yeah, as you said, they gotta win, you know. Oh, but he lose first. I mean, if they got a national championship, nobody is gonna remember that loss, you know, especially if they win tomorrow. But if they do become eliminated, as we said all year, this was a rebuilding team. This was a team that was expected to come this far. I feel like the last year's team was disappointing. The elimination at home against Notre Dame, that was disappointing. This year is going to be a feeling of surprise, and if the elimination do come, a sadness because you'll be a kind of like a Cinderella story.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what's made this run so much fun because granted, I think I did come on here and say that the Vols were going to Omaha. I don't know how much I truly believed it when I said it, but I saw a path when I looked at the brackets, when I looked at the schedule, and especially when they took out Clemson, you knew that, yeah. So it's going to be very fascinating. Um, but Wake Forest to the Final Four. Also, I found this funny fact. Do you know who the AD is for Wake Forest?
Is ah, oh my god, he was in the 2017 fired. Oh my god, I forgot his name.
John Curry.
John Curry.
Dude, if Tennessee somehow wins tomorrow, it'll be the Vols versus John Curry. And ironically, John Curry hired Tony Vitello. So, because everyone remembers the whole football fiasco, but he did make one of the best hires ever in any sport. Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, what if we had just let him hire Greg Schiano? You know, how would that have turned out? I mean, I think things happen for a reason, and they clearly have led us to Heupel. So I'm glad things have worked out the way they did. But would things have been different? Because I think Schiano would have been better than Pruitt.
Uh, it's so funny that if you think about it, like the big sin that John Curry had, it was trying to have an outside of the box hire because all his head coach tries were outside of the SEC. I remember he was trying Duke's head coach. He was trying to get North NC State head coach. He was trying everything outside of the SEC and the Saban tree. What did Philip Fulmer did right after the Saban coaching tree was an easy hire. They ended up being a terrible hire.
Correct. Yeah, it was very much the old school. We can still play like it's a 1990s hire, and thankfully we brought in a new fresh face who is able to realize that we have to get Tennessee into the 21st century. Um,
Be-
and
Because think about it. John Curry was trying to hire a head coach, and he couldn't. And then he tried a DC from a school that was, looks promising, and a guy who was already a coach. Like I think, like Pruitt was never like a college coach before he got the Tennessee gig.
no, he had never been a head coach. He'd only been a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, but Greg Schiano was already head coach before the Ohio State DC.
Yeah, I mean, because remember he had been at Rutgers and he had
Yeah,
taken Rutgers some of their best seasons ever. Granted, that was in the Big East, but still, like, I mean, it was Rutgers, and Rutgers hasn't done anything. I know he's back at Rutgers now, and they're not great, but we have to remember it's Rutgers, right? And I remember some of a lot of the things that came up at the time. And don't kid yourself. The main reason why people didn't want him, including me, was we didn't think he could win big in the SEC. And I still stand by that fact that I don't think he would have done a good job at Tennessee. I don't think that would have been the right fit. But then also people brought up the Penn State stuff, like how he was on staff with Jerry Sandusky, and
yeah, and Joe Paterno.
yeah. So how fair was that criticism? I think that may have been a bit far, but because I mean, I'm wondering when you look at the depositions, he allegedly had seen something. I believe that was the story that that was flying around. So yeah, it's not really ancient history. I mean, that was just a dark, dark time in Tennessee athletics, right there. But yeah. But hey, John Curry at least is at a much more stable position now in his career at Wake Forest, and I just wonder what he's thinking that about seeing potentially Tennessee being the only doormat, only obstacle in the way of Wake Forest making a national championship. Which for Wake Forest to do that in any sport is incredible.
and they're being somehow relevant. I mean, they've been in the top 25 multiple times in football. I mean, basketball, they kind of went a couple of times to the March Madness, but definitely will be an interesting matchup, especially from John Curry. I imagine if this game ended up happening, he's gonna be shown in the broadcast and be all everything will be remembered, and the Vols fans gonna point out, But before get to Wake Forest, you have to still think about Tennessee LSU, which is gonna be a great matchup. I like those rivalry games definitely because LSU fans probably is still bitter about the loss in football. That was humiliating.
Yeah, I think in terms of baseball too, they're still mad about what happened in 21, about how we ended the legendary career of Paul Marineri, and then the Vol fans booing him at the end of the last game in Knoxville. I mean, I think that's where a lot of the hatred between LSU and Tennessee, and frankly, a lot of the hatred between Tennessee and Arkansas, and Tennessee and Vanderbilt, and some of these other SEC schools comes from, is what happened back in 21. And the intense rivalries have started. So it's going to be a no holds barred match tomorrow night in Omaha, especially with everything on the line. It's everything that you want in college sports coming down tomorrow night. It's going to be a great atmosphere. It's going to be a very intense, electric atmosphere. It may be the most intense and electric atmosphere of the entire tournament tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see. I hope the Vols get the win. Again, as you pointed out, LSU is gonna have to pitch a different pitcher compared to Saturday, and I hope Tennessee somehow finds the win because I think Tony Vitello deserves so much this win. I mean, I really root for him. He always treated me so well when I was in Knoxville, and he deserves to be the first coach with a national championship. I know Hypo and Rick Barnes and even Kelly Harper are doing a great job, hardworking, but the guy who deserves to be the coach of the first national championship in Tennessee athletics since 2008, I believe, with the Lady Vols.
I believe so. I think tennis might have won one
Yeah,
year
yeah. Let's the big four. I mean, the big
before.
five.
Yeah, it'd be yeah. Because you also shout out Karen Weekly. She got herself a raise as well. She's making up to $500,000 a year now. So very good
But
by softball standards.
yeah, but my point is, I really hope Tony Vitello gets the title, but I know you still have to win this game tomorrow, and then we'll have to face Wake Forest, which is going to be a hard task. But I believe in the Vols, and I think it's going to be like 6-4 tomorrow for the Vols.
I could definitely see that. And think about the road that the Vols are going to go on because they're going to have to win tomorrow night against LSU, find a way to beat Wake Forest twice, and then if you get past all of that, you probably have Florida waiting for you in the national title series because Florida right now is like Wake Forest on the other side. They're 1 win away from the national title, and they'll face the winner of Oral Roberts and TCU on the other side. TCU eliminated Virginia yesterday. So imagine if Oral Roberts beats TCU again, then Oral Roberts gets into the basically baseball Final Four. You know, and talk about just Virginia, like and Virginia as well, like just disappointing for them. They've had some good runs in recent years, but they obviously struggled a ton in this World Series.
Yeah, I guess I mean, Virginia has been disappointing in college sports. I mean, look what happened in basketball in March Madness, and and we gotta face them in football, right, in the opening
Yep,
game.
yep, yep. Right now they are 28-point underdogs. Of course, obviously they had a very tragic end to their season last year of what happened with those players, and they didn't even finish their season because of what happened. So, um, yeah, they're not expected to be very good in football. But yeah, also Stanford. Stanford blew two leads in this World Series. They had a lead over Wake Forest and a lead over Tennessee, and they blew them both. So, because remember they got him because Texas lost the light and the ball and the lights, and you know, hey, it is what it is. Baseball is a cruel, cruel sport. So, Tennessee LSU tomorrow night. under the lights in Omaha. It's gonna be electric, indeed. Um, moving on, I guess we would sort of say baseball real quick, because this was happening during our last podcast. The Oakland A's reverse boycott. Of course, my friend Nick, who used to be my roommate, he was there. He said it's one of the most electric environments he's ever been to as a baseball fan. And the reason why I wanted to bring this back up because they had, I think, 27,000 people show up to this game. A lot of them couldn't even get in because of bad traffic flow, and the stadium didn't have enough workers. Some people think they did this intentionally to try to suppress attendance. And Rob Manfred came out after the fact and said, "Well, why can't they get that many? Why can't they get that many
Fans.
sports? Yeah, why can't they fans every night? Why do they only show up once?"
Oh, that was, I say, disingenuous to say the least. Like, he knows why. Like, he's being so oblivious. He's like, he gotta see that Oakland fan base is disengaged because of the things that front office and the ownership is doing. That literally is making this team non-competitive, cheaper as possible to make the fan base disinterest, and then you go to a new city that you get a new stadium. That's obvious for anybody can see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know why the MLB expects Oakland to bear the brunt of paying for this new stadium when it's clear the organization is just not investing back in the team itself. I mean, literally, I saw something where like a fan was talking about how they've never seen John Fisher speak to the media. They've never seen him explain the decisions that he makes. They haven't seen him explain why they've literally gotten rid of every good player they have. I mean, look at half of the Atlanta Braves roster is like former Oakland A's players. We got Sean Murphy, and you have Matt Olson. Like half our team's former Oakland A's at this point. Like, you're not keeping any of your good players. Your payroll is below abysmal. I mean, it's just a shame, and it's a shame that, and it really is just an indictment on Major League Baseball that they have let a team be ran into the ground like this. This is a black eye for the entire sport. You should not allow one of your members to be ran this badly. And we're going to have an example here in just a minute of what another league is doing when a team is being ran into the ground. But they took action. They took action. The MLB is encouraging it because they want their golden team in Las Vegas. When even the Nevada politicians can't even agree if they really want them. Now, I know the Senate passed the stadium bill, but the representatives are still debating it. There's a chance they may not pass it. Now, if they do pass it, the governor, Joe Lombardo, will pass it. But the fact that it's not unanimous shows that I think a lot of people in Nevada don't really want this. They don't care if the Las Vegas A's happens because, if I'm a Las Vegas fan, my hockey team just won a championship. You have the Raiders. I look over there like, why would I want it? Why would I want the A's? I'm not going to go spend my time in Las Vegas at a subpar baseball team.
And I feel like if they did this 10 years ago, would have been one thing. It would be like, oh my God, professional sports coming to Vegas. But now, as you said, they have a hockey team who literally just won a Stanley Cup, something that any Canadian team couldn't do in this 21st century. Vegas did in 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a football team that is rebuilding. Of course, they lost their biggest star, Derek Carr, but they got a star in Jimmy Garoppolo. So in terms of baseball, I mean, they're not as you know engaged as they were if this was 10 years ago. If the A's there were, I think, 10 years ago, and it's so funny, like, oh my God, this kind of subpar kind of thing in terms of uh, roster. It was a theme of a movie that the whole world saw in Moneyball. You know, there was already signs of problems in terms of lack of investment in a good roster in a movie. So it just was amplified.
Absolutely, and Moneyball is not going to cut it in Vegas. It shouldn't be cutting it in Oakland. I mean, no professional team should be ran like Moneyball. Simply put, but like the fact that we've allowed Oakland to be ran like this for years is ridiculous. And the fact that Rob Manfred isn't apologizing for that, Rob Manfred should be apologizing to Oakland for his team not providing any realistic opportunity for them to compete. Because this isn't college. This isn't like, Washington State in the Pac 12. You understand that in Pullman, Washington, you don't have a lot of advantages. Like, you're going to struggle to do well. Washington State even still has good seasons in the Pac 12. But, like, the Oakland A's just don't, it seems like.
Yeah. Oh my God. If you keep talking about Robert Manfred tenure as an MLB commissioner, I mean, we're gonna be all here all night because we have a lot of things that was, to say the least, you know a little bit weak in terms of his actions. But I want to talk things on the field because for me, the New York teams are having a really surprising slow start. Both the Yankees and the Mets, more the Mets, with all the investment, all the money that Steve Cohen throwing, and they're below 500, and they're blowing a lot of leads, and they lost 7 out of the last 10 games. I mean, uh, uh, my Mets fans are like, where? I mean, where this money's going?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the New York Yankees, I mean, why aren't they in the title contention every single year? Or like when they make the ALCS, why are you allowing Houston to sweep you? I mean, and I think, it's almost like they're trying the NBA model of let's just throw as many stars on this team as possible and see if it works. But baseball doesn't work like that. Like, it's not about star power, it's about chemistry. And I think the Yankees aren't realizing that. And you got to wonder, too, is that hurting the Los Angeles Dodgers as well? Like, when you look at some of their postseason performances, they have the highest payroll, but notice they've only won, frankly, a Mickey Mouse, the 60 game season in 2020. It's almost like
Yeah,
higher payrolls equal, problems.
I think have a mixed balance. Of course, if you say the last 10 years, the Astros is a model. Of course, they're also. I mean, I know I say they're a model, but they also can be very controversial because of a lot of the things that they did off the field. But if we realistic look, they lost their GM, their coach, and they rebuild into again to another championship team. In 2 years. So and they don't have they built this team with players that weren't superstars, but they are productive. Baseball is about productivity and about bullpen. When you get a good bullpen, you can go further. And I think the Mets are making investments that are a lot about name, but not about depth. And I'm just worried. And but how about the Orioles? I mean, the Orioles that went really bad last year. They are in second place in American League East. They're only 5 games behind Tampa Bay Rays. I mean, they look promising, and a lot of people are saying that the Orioles are the team that is benefiting the most with the pitch clock.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, the Rays and the Orioles both. I mean, they're just very solid clubs. I remember the Orioles and Braves earlier on this year. One of the best series of the year, in my opinion. I thought that was a very evenly played baseball series. So I'm very excited to see what those two teams do. I'm just looking at the rest of the AL. So why is anyone from the AL Central allowed to make the playoffs this year? I mean, your leader right now is the Twins at 500, and everyone else is below 500. I mean, the Detroit Tigers are only 4.5 games back at 31 and 42. Um, just an awful, awful division.
I mean, even the NL Central right now wasn't look that promising. And the Reds and the Brewers. I mean, they're okay-ish teams, but
Yeah, well,
They
the
are,
Reds are hot. They've won 9 straight.
yeah.
So,
Can
I
they
mean, they're right
finally
on it.
compete in at least making the postseason? Because for my entire time in the United States, I don't even remember one. I think probably 2017 maybe, but I always remember the Reds being irrelevant. For
Well, remember they had the 2020 playoff series at the Braves, but that was in the expanded playoff. So
yeah,
they wouldn't have made it in the normal year. Um, yeah, but kind of back home in the NL East here, we have a really fascinating race starting to set up here because you have the Atlanta Braves, favorites, one of the favorites to win the entire NL. They're 46 and 26. Their offense is just unreal right now. What they are doing. I mean, they literally scored. What is it here? They scored 16, 26. They scored 40 runs against the Rockies this weekend in 4 games. I mean, just absolutely demolished them. They literally on Saturday, I think they had 4 different home runs in the first like 6 innings. I mean, they're on fire, and of course, part of that could be just the Rockies um, struggling a bit, but at the same time, you know, so I mean, it's impressive what the Braves did this season. But what may even be more impressive, Luis Arias, Luis Arias for the Marlins. I mean, he went 5 for 5 the other night, one of like 4 times that's ever happened in MLB history, and he's hitting almost at 400. And the Marlins are only 4.5 games back. They are keeping pace with the Braves, and the Marlins for the first time in I can't even remember are a legitimate playoff contender.
and it's funny how the Marlins are the kind of team who, if they made it to the wild card, you have to keep an eye on it because when they make it, they really make it.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Royals in that fact, where they have that history. They have a history of making those surprise runs, and if Luis Arias plays like that, especially, it would be very interesting. Of course, you got the Phillies. They're 30 and 34. You can't ignore them. They're 8 and 2 in their last 10. So maybe Philadelphia is starting to get their act together as the defending NL champions. Um, I think for me, I want to see if the Diamondbacks are sustainable. Can they hold on to the NL West with more talented rosters behind them, with the Dodgers, with the Giants, with the Padres? No one was expecting Arizona to win that division, but they're on top of that of the AL or NL West rather. I'll just be curious if can they hold on. I don't think they're going to, but they're in position. They want to.
Yeah, that's true. And I was expecting more of the Padres too, with Fernando Tatis coming back and a loaded roster. They're a slow start, and nobody expected Diamondbacks. I mean, Diamondbacks and the Orioles. What a surprise! But as you know, is one season before the All Star game and another season after the All Star game. I mean, as a Braves fan, you know more than anybody.
Oh, absolutely. So as I said, I don't really like to think about playoffs. The first half is just about figuring out best lineup combinations, about getting to the All Star break in a good spot. Right now, the Braves obviously are putting themselves in what's going to be a phenomenal spot, but there's still a long way to go. You don't win World Series in June, so definitely, I hope we don't peak too early. Um, Moving over to some NBA talk. Of course, it's been a week since the Nuggets won, so we are firmly in the offseason. And I think the number one thing people were waiting on, after game one, Adam Silver came out and said, I'm going to wait till after the NBA Finals to make any sort of announcement on John Morant. But the moment the NBA Finals ended, everyone was like, okay, Adam, what is the decision? What is your call? And Silver has decided to suspend John Morant 25 games over a quarter of the season next year. And what's interesting is John Morant, I believe it was yesterday, he retweeted a rumor that John Morant apparently thought the NBA was coming after him, and he just tweeted a GIF of a giant cap. So no cap, um, or a called cap rather, basically meaning that's not true. So he's claiming that he's a changed man again, that he's truly sorry this time and that he is not going to do it again, especially since it's costing him over a quarter of the season next year and a quarter of his salary. Um, why should I believe him? Why
Yeah.
should anyone believe him?
I mean, as we're going to talk about it a little bit later, there are examples of players who give chance after chance after chance, and they keep disappointing. And it's going to be a harsh punishment. And we hope he learns his lesson because he's a talented basketball player that a city embraced like Memphis. So if he doesn't get his act together, then I don't know what it's going to be because outside of Memphis, I don't know if any NBA team wants to take a risk with him.
I mean, I could think of some that would be desperate enough. I think like if Detroit had the chance, they would absolutely sign him because Detroit hasn't done anything in like 20 years at this point. So like some teams are going to like Charlotte would, Orlando would, teams that haven't done anything in a very long time. Maybe New Orleans would, considering some of their own on off the court issues. I don't know if you saw the latest drama with Zion Williamson today. Um, so basically, one of his side companions claims to have certain tapes that she's willing to unleash on the public, basically blackmailing him, which is illegal. So if that is true, she's committing a crime on Twitter.
I mean, it's just sad that Zion, but that probably is not gonna fulfill his full potential in the NBA. But again, he was already having issues, getting injuries. But that's true. Like no person you know, should be in facing this blackmailing online.
Absolutely, and it's such weird attention. Like I have no idea why any person would do that. I mean, clearly it's for clout. It has to be for clout, Like, oh, I mean, look at me. I'm toying with the future of an NBA star. Um, for someone who really is just trying to promote certain private subscription services that they have. So, I mean, it's just unfortunate, and it's just a reminder to everyone is to be careful with who you associate with, because clearly Zion and John Morant both have chosen perhaps unwisely, considering the potential they have. They both still have the potential to be great players in this league. And I just hope that things ultimately work out for them in the long run. I do think, though, that this punishment's fair. And I think the other thing, too, is how does this affect the Grizzlies next season? Because, this year they were the number 2 seed. I don't think they're going to be the 2 seed next year. I think, they can still make the playoffs. But I could see a scenario where John Morant missing all of these games puts them in a position where they're going to be a playing team. Because remember, the West standings this year were super tight. If they had lost like 6 more games, it would have been a playing team. So there's very little room for error in the Western Conference. And John Morant's selfish actions is going to really hurt his team, I think.
Yeah, and again, let's see how the Grizzlies deal with him without him, and how he comes back. And it's gonna be interesting because now it's gonna be probably around a time that NBA starts to be relevant. Because I guess would be like late November, already kind of December when he's come back.
Yeah, so 25 games at that point. If you're playing a game every other night, yeah, you're looking at like mid-December. Mid to late December. So like it's not like he's missing like a super much of the season, but I mean those games count. And those are gonna count by the end of the season. So
Yeah, I
just
just hope
hopefully he can get himself right.
I'll say though, maybe he can ask Aaron Rodgers where his dark retreatness went, and then he
Yeah.
goes there like do a dark retreat.
Yeah, and make sure you take away all of his cell phones too before he goes into the darkness retreat. Because at this
Yeah,
rate, he's going to go in there with a phone, and somehow his match going to end up with a gun inside the darkness retreat. He's going to be
yeah.
waving around his gun in the middle of the darkness retreat.
No,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like it wasn't like uh, Aaron Rodgers' first thing he did at the Darkness retreat was being without cell phones.
Uh, I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah,
Is if you go on there with
yeah,
your phone and you're not dark, you're not in the
yeah.
darkness retreat.
That's why I said John Moran needs Aaron Rodgers style of a Darkness retreat because of you know, get out and yeah, again, you who you associate yourself with is your decision, but you got some point think about it. Like, am I the same person that I was 5, 10 years ago, and who I should be connected with?
Oh yes. So um, I'll be curious to see what happens with him. Also, I know you brought this one. You put this one in, Gus. Michael Jordan selling his stake of the Charlotte Hornets, and what turned out to be a very disappointing ownership run. Right? I mean, Charlotte did nothing. They never even won a playoff series with him in 13 years. Um, I mean, you just got to ask, is this more Michael Jordan's ownership issues, or is this just more it's the Charlotte Hornets, and they've
A
been
little,
cursed?
a little bit of both, because as a lot of people don't point it out, but some do. Outside of the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan did not have success in the NBA now with two franchises, the Wizards and now the Hornets.
Yeah, of course, the Wizards, of course, he was older by that point, so no one, I think, would expect him to be great. Of course, as an executive, it's way different. And you have to think about, the Hornets, look at some of the picks. I mean, how many times have they had the number one overall pick, right? Like, they really haven't, lottery hasn't favored them. Um, and of course, with it being Charlotte, and, I like Charlotte. I think Charlotte's a great city. Um, but I mean, obviously, it's not New York, it's not Los Angeles, and you're just not going to land free agents there
But
like you would in those
but
places.
but I think but I think Charlotte fans were expecting the kid that started it all in North Carolina, came back to save the team, and I feel like, and it's so funny. It kind of reminds me of an example here in Brazil, and of course, the Brazilian example is kind of more tragic than the Hornets. I guess you remember Rivaldo, right? He played for Barcelona, the Brazil national team. He was a star in the '90s and 2000s.
Yeah,
He,
yeah,
he was
I'm familiar with that.
he was part of the 2002 Brazil World Champion. His first team was also Mojimi. His third team was Mojimi. Then after he was close to retirement, he came play in the club. Then he bought the club. He went president. Then the team started to have some success. But then he run the team into the ground, and I'm gonna talk about it later. They were relegated again, but I think there was the same expectation. The kid that started out here came back to bring success, but he couldn't. And I feel like Michael Jordan, with all his name recognition in basketball, should be better in attracting free agents. Like, Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. But I don't know. Like, he knows more basketball than I could ever possibly do, or he is the goat. But as an executive, I think he was a little bit silent to try to push the team into a championship contender.
Yeah, like you don't think of him as like a Mark Cuban. You don't think of him as like the guy that owns the Clippers, Ballmer.
Steve
And I know the
Ballman.
Clipper. Yeah, and I know the Clippers haven't had ton of success either. But still, I mean, compare where the Clippers were of where the Clippers have gone to, and it's night and day. And the Hornets haven't even done what the Clippers have done. And I think a team like the Hornets needs someone bombastic to really get them back. And of course, obviously, when it comes to ownership, I have no idea who should take over the Hornets.
Yeah, and because they're one of the few small market teams in the NBA, it's so concentrated, and they're a small market team in the South, like the Charlotte Hornets and the Memphis Grizzlies are hard, because Atlanta is a big market. Atlanta is a big city, but Charlotte and Memphis are not.
Yeah. And I think when you look at the basketball cultures, though, Memphis has a deep basketball culture. So does Charlotte. Like North Carolina, of course, with college basketball is a huge basketball era. But you have to wonder, does that hurt the Charlotte Hornets? With everyone being so much more invested in it, the UNC and Duke and all of those teams. Does that take away attention from the NBA team?
Like the Connecticut Sun in the WNBA, also like with so much attention in women's basketball involving with the Huskies, takes away a little bit of the professional side.
Well, I mean, I think that's the sole reason why they have a team. It's because of that. I mean, because that's one of the places where women's basketball is so popular that you can have a team feasibly be there. I mean, it's crazy that you don't even think about it. There's not an WNBA team in Tennessee when there probably should be. Why isn't there one in Knoxville? Like, I think people would show up in Knoxville to a WNBA game because
Yeah,
we understand the history of it.
yeah, that, and I think TBA will definitely be with a lot of fans, and especially if there be like let's say the name would be Knoxville Orange or something like that. It would be really cool.
The Knoxville Summit.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, the Knoxville Summit. There you go. All right. I need to make enough money so I can create my own professional sports team. Hopefully, call it the Knoxville Summit at the WNBA.
And I guess we'll do a better job than another person who got a professional team.
Yeah, Antonio Brown. Oh my gosh. I mean, where do we even start? Because we really haven't talked about this. But I guess if you haven't heard, long story short, Antonio Brown, of course, since his infamous meltdown against the Jets in his final NFL game, has been just kind of doing whatever. He apparently goes by Antonio El Allah now. Literally calls himself Antonio the God in Arabic. I'm not going to call him that. I'm going to call him Antonio Brown. He decided to buy a Arena Football League team a few weeks ago, the Albany Empire. And the Albany Empire apparently had won 2 straight titles in the NAL, the National Arena League. Well, so he goes in there, he fires the head coach. I think he appoints himself the GM, and it just goes downhill from there because you have him not paying players, not paying league fees. You have players fighting each other, him taking away hotel key cards from players as retaliation for reactions against him. You have him during the league games going on to YouTube and arguing with fans and arguing with the league through his YouTube account and on his personal Twitter during Albany Empire games, just bashing players. We're like, these players are trash. We can't win with them. We're going to clean house, and just publicly bashing players. And then earlier last week, he went out to a bunch of reporters shirtless and talked about how he is here to bring back football to the community. He is a servant of God, and no one would be paying these players if it wasn't for me. And we are going to the Arena Football League because this league doesn't know what they're doing. Well, the league doesn't know what they're doing. The NAL decided to kick Albany from the league. They couldn't take it anymore. Their official reason was they weren't paying the fines. But really, to me, they just didn't want to deal with Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown, in 4 months, has gone from buying a team to destroying it completely.
First of all, I just feel bad for the fans. Imagine you rooting for a football team, even though it's arena football, but it's a football team, being back-to-back champions, and seeing one batshit crazy person going there to use your team for your personal ego and then destroy it. Like, I feel bad for the fans because
I
from what
know.
from what I see from the footage of the games, there were fans, there were people interested, and of course they were back-to-back champions. They had the feeling like I rooted for a champion team, like a team that were a champion, and now they're out of the league. So, like, first of all, I guess nobody wants to deal with Antonio Brown ever. Like I wouldn't buy a car I wouldn't buy a car by him.
No, I mean I wouldn't do music with him. I wouldn't open a hot dog stand with him. Because what he's gonna do at the hot dog stand, he's just gonna start throwing hot dogs at cars going by on the street. I mean, it's just I don't understand. Like he's talking about like playing for the team and just I mean firing a coach for no reason, then bringing him back because one of your best players was going to quit, and then firing him again. I mean, he promoted a player to head coach because there was no one else that wanted to be head coach.
But you know the saddest part was like his action remind me a lot of Brazilian soccer bad uh, managers and bad front offices and bad presidents. You know, it's I guess Antonio Brown was like, I'm gonna copy all the bad motto and bad actions of Brazilian soccer front office into one team, and that's what he said. But I guess if Antonio Brown doesn't, find nobody to embrace him in America, I guess in Brazil people would be, would have, like him because he'll be an NFL player coming to like. I guess his next idea would have buy a Brazilian football team, which there are legit football teams in Brazil. I wonder what would have happened.
It'd be like Ted Lasso,
Yeah,
straight up. I mean, it'd be straight up Ted Lasso. Unlike where Ted Lasso was able to come in, like, well, I might not know anything about soccer, but we're going to try to win some games.
no,
And Antonio Brown, uh, yeah,
I'm talking about like a football, like American football team, like football, like football. Uh,
well,
uh, yeah,
can you
like
imagine him trying to recruit players to go to Brazil to play football, to play for
uh,
Antonio Brown?
yeah, you like. I would be curious if he comes to Brazil and get himself involved with the team. Like I think there would be teams' interest because here the fee is not that big. It's still very semi-professional. I'm just giving Antonio Brown ideas now that nobody in America would be trust with him.
I mean, okay, if he goes to Brazil and buys a team, you're going to have to find a way to do an interview with him.
Oh, I will. I will. I will.
Yeah,
I will go any city he is. I will go to Sao Paulo, Rio, anywhere to get any. Because first of all, I'll probably be one of the few who knows all the things he did in America, and I'll be hard with questions. I wonder what his reaction would have been.
yeah, he'd probably be like, "Wait, this Brazilian guy knows football." That'd be his reaction probably. He's like, "How do you know football?"
Or
And then he
how do you
confronted
know?
me.
Yeah. How do you know I did some crazy stuff in my past in America?
He's gonna be like, "You're lying." That's all. That's all like deep state stuff. It's all
Yeah.
conspiracy theories.
I just hope he wouldn't show up in front of my house and did what he done with some other people.
Ah, yeah, yeah. I mean, or maybe he'll pay, or maybe if he comes to Brazil, he'll actually pay his child support. So, yeah,
Yeah, here in Brazil, if you don't pay child support, you go to prison.
yeah. Which honestly, at this rate, that might be going. But you do just have to wonder because to me, it seems obvious he has to have CTE. He just has to, especially after Devontae's perfect hit back in 2015. Um, if that didn't happen, how different of a person would he be? Because it feels like all the hits he took, it's causing this insane behavior. Because I don't feel like just if he were just not a football player, I don't think he would have turned out like this.
Yeah, you gotta wonder. You really, I just don't know because, I mean, we just talk about another athlete who acting a little bit off the rails, and he's in basketball, not in football, which should be affecting your brain activities. So that's why I wouldn't put a lot into this, but definitely it got to be in parts. I guess it should be counted on, but with all this, I just feel bad because it just show how wasted talented. That's why I was talking about John Moran. Like that's what John Moran should look and be like, wow, do I really want to waste my talent and be a pariah and go bad decision after bad decision, or I are gonna act straight and really be a professional sports athlete?
Yeah, and yeah, I saw some people debating has Antonio Brown ruined his Hall of Fame status with this? But I mean, you have to think about it. He's still a Super Bowl champion, a four-time All-Pro player, led receiving twice. Yes, obviously with all the off-the-field antics, it isn't great. But from a stats perspective, from an accomplishments perspective on the field, to me, I still think he is a Hall of Famer.
You gotta wonder though, like how much Tom Brady was able to assemble that 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster into a championship, into be a champion. Because, like, if I'm not mistaken, Leonard Fournette after that wasn't the same, and he gone off rails, and of course, Robert Gronkowski, he, was retired and come back, and I wonder like how much Brady was, God made this team work.
Yeah, I mean, it also helps that Matt LaFleur did not go for it on fourth down with Aaron Rodgers as well
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
fourth quarter. So that's also the other part of it to think about as well. But obviously that Bucks team, especially on defense, is well constructed. We saw what they did to the Chiefs' offensive line and made Patrick Mahomes literally go 1v11 in the Super Bowl. But I'll never forgive the Packers for not giving the ball to Aaron Rodgers down 8 in the fourth quarter. It just made no sense then. It still doesn't make any sense. And I don't think the Packers are going to have any chance quite like that for a very long time. So
Yeah, but just to close up, I hope Antonio Brown find himself and looks for help.
absolutely. And speaking of someone else who also needs help, former West Virginia head coach now, Bob Huggins, that's going to take in some use because he's been there for a very long time. He went to West Virginia, went to coach at Cincinnati, took them to two Final Fours, or took them to a Final Four, came back to West Virginia in the mid 2000s, took them to a Final Four in 2010. And what was as a Hall of Famer, one of the most successful college basketball coaches of his time. But unfortunately, things went off the rails, quite literally. Speaking of going off the rails, this offseason, of course, a few weeks ago, he went on Cincinnati program, called everyone at Xavier a bunch of gay slurs, and he had got suspended for that. And then he got arrested for a DUI of .21 on Friday in Pittsburgh, and he was forced to resign. And that's it for Bob Huggins. I can't quite remember a coach flameout like this in a very long time. Maybe, Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss. The prostitutes is what it kind of reminds me of.
Petrino.
Yeah, Petrino. This is probably more like a Petrino. I mean, it's just sad because, Huggins already had his legacy made. I don't think he was ever going to win a national title at West Virginia, but he was going to be able to retire there. They weren't going to fire him. But it's just unfortunate, just what happens when you have personal demons, like Huggins had. So hopefully he can get it figured out and he can have a happy retirement. But I know especially for guys like that, it's hard to not coach basketball. And I don't think we'll see him again in the coaching ranks.
Yeah, as you pointed out, like he had his legend set up in the Mountaineers, but I guess he off the field actions and controversies were too big to deal.
Absolutely. And more exciting news now on college football, the SEC has revealed its 2024 schedules. And there's some controversy, as they're bound to be, because for some asinine reason, we're only playing 8 games still. But, so for example, for Tennessee, our 8 games, we have Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Mississippi State at home. And on the road, you're going to go to Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. Just what's your reaction to that schedule?
I mean, I like it because we kept all the rivalries. I mean, I think you point out how was the biggest fear with all those changes in divisions but they kept the rivalries. Alabama, Florida, Georgia. Even Vandy, they were able to fit in.
Yeah, but not everyone got to. I mean, look at South Carolina, for example. They get LSU, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Texas A&M at home. They go on the road to Alabama, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt. I mean, they don't play Georgia. They don't play Florida or Tennessee. You know, so that's one team that kind of loses some of their biggest games on a
But but
yearly basis.
but their biggest rival is Clemson. So I guess this rivalry is going to be kept for a long time.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly true. Um, but I just got to wonder as we keep on going down the road here, some of these are going to get lost. Um, and of course, you could be here all night diagnosing these schedules. I think probably the hardest one to me, and it's probably just relative to their team strength, is Vanderbilt. Their home schedule is Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. I
I mean,
mean,
they like that they got programs that fans are going to show up. So they're going to
yeah,
make
they're going to play 8 road games next year, basically.
yeah.
Yeah, because that's no fun. Try to think. Georgia, they have to go to Alabama next year, and they have to go to Texas. So unlike this year, where Georgia's really only true hard game, in my opinion, is at Tennessee, unless Auburn is a surprise. Um, next year they got 2 really tough ones in the road, Alabama and Texas. I think that's more fair. Alabama, they go on the road to LSU, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, along with Vanderbilt. So that's a wild schedule for them.
Oh, I guess Mighty Nick's going to be complaining. Is he going to go to Congress to complain about that too?
Yeah, also he has to play Georgia at home as well. So, so I mean, honestly, there's a chance they could go 4-4. There is a legit chance they could go 4-4 with that schedule. You know,
Yeah, but then
yeah,
he's going to schedule. But then he's going to schedule cupcakes and neutral site field games.
here's the 4 neutral conference games next year: Chattanooga, Alabama A&M, Mississippi Valley State, and Tennessee School for the Blind. There you go. That's who's coming to Tuscaloosa next year. And then Nick Saban's going to get up and saying, well, we totally could play 9 games. I think we should play 9 games. But, I think everyone will have to recognize that maybe it's not in the best health of the athletes. Wink, wink.
He's got, or he might schedule Louisiana Monroe and say they're tough. They beat us in 2007, so we need to play them again. Like,
oh my goodness. All right, Mississippi State on the road. I mean, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Texas on the road for them. That's brutal.
I mean, what hasn't been brutal for Mississippi State? They're still healing the loss of Mike Leach. Now, that's why a team that is really a big question mark what's going to be next season.
Yeah, I'm not extremely high on them just because they're going to be changing their offensive philosophy. And I don't know how Will Rogers is going to adapt to that. He's still their quarterback, but I don't know if he's really going to be in the best positions to succeed. So Miss State, to me, is a complete wild card. To me, right now, they're probably at the bottom of the division. But they could pull some surprises.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to think about a lot about about Leach and his legacy, but definitely it's going to be new times down in Starksville.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's just kind of a cursory look at the SEC. I think overall it seemed mostly fair. I think everyone has really tough games, as you should in the SEC. So good times. It's going to be weird. It's going to be a weird time not getting used to divisions. But I think, It'll be interesting. And I'm trying to imagine what the standings are going to look like at the end of the year to get the top 2 teams out of 16 to a title game. You know, I mean, that's just going to be chaos every single week.
So there's not going to be any divisions. This is the last year with divisions.
Correct. This is the last year of division. So next year will be the top 2 teams in the conference. So it's going to be extremely difficult to make it. But it's also the first year of the 12-team playoff. So I think there's a good chance you're going to have 3 or 4 teams make the playoff. So it honestly might be more to your benefit to not make the SEC championship game. If you're like that 3rd or 4th team, skip it and just go straight to the playoff.
Yeah, and I think conference championships are going to lose value with the expanded playoff.
Absolutely, because just one more game, your players are getting beat up that the other teams don't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, does anyone remember that TCU lost like last year? Like TCU lost their conference title game. Does anyone care that happened? No.
The committee didn't.
Exactly. And they validated themselves by beating Michigan. So, I think honestly, like the conference title game is going the way of the dodo bird, as they would say. The only way you can make them truly relevant again is if you expand the playoffs so much that every conference got an automatic qualifier, but that would only matter for the smaller conferences.
Like in basketball and baseball.
Yep.
But that's not going to happen. That's definitely not going to happen. Don't get yourself.
Those are a waste of games.
Because now with the college football playoff, that would invalidate the rankings. Because think about it, the conference championships matter in basketball and baseball because they invalidate the rankings because you can be bad all year, win your conference championship and be in. In football,
but in football, you're going to have to be good all year to make the conference title game.
Yeah.
So you aren't going to have a conference tournament like in basketball.
But you don't have any advantage in a true postseason, which is a national championship, like in baseball and basketball.
True. So it's going to be just so interesting to watch how college football moves forward. It's going to be a sport that I think we won't recognize. Will it be for the better or for the worse? It remains to be seen. I do have my concerns, but I am excited for the new world, especially with Tennessee's program and the way they are moving forward. And fortunately, they are going to be moving forward with the best player in my local area, Boo Carter, running back from Chattanooga. He committed to the Vols on Saturday night, 4-star, committed to the Vols over Michigan, Ohio State, and Colorado. This dude's electric, very fast, speedy back. He can catch the football. He's a great punt and kick returner. He's a smaller guy, but he's super quick. I think it's going to be a great fit in Josh Heupel's offense. To me, obviously, as someone from Chattanooga, born and raised, I love seeing players come from here to go to Knoxville. And hopefully he ends up being like one of the great ones, because he's definitely the best one ever from Chattanooga is Reggie White. And we would love to have another superstar in Knoxville from Chattanooga.
Yeah, that's true. That was a huge commitment. From what he described, he wants to play with a fast tempo offense of Heupel.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a great fit for him. So it is good to see Tennessee win those in-state recruiting battles. It is big. So I'll have to go check him out at high school football this year. He plays for a Bradley Central up in Cleveland.
Yeah. And maybe you can try to invite him in our podcast. Yeah, I guess Nicholas Hill, had some issues with his computer or his down chat. I think he's coming back. Let's see. Nicholas Hill, are you back?
Whoops. Yep, I am back. We just had some technical difficulties.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're live, it always can happen.
Yeah. But anyway, let's shift down to Brazil because I actually, for the first time, got to watch some Rio Bronco soccer. And hey, maybe I need to watch more because for all the trials, for all the turmoils that you have described to me about Rio Bronco, um, I was witness to perhaps one of their biggest wins in a very long time.
Oh yeah. First of all, I went to Calleiras. I went to Calleiras. A lot of people were like saying that I was crazy to broadcast there. I should have done the studio, won't waste gas. But I was like, that's probably going to be one of the biggest games Rio Branco or probably will have Rio Branco will have because of all the implications, especially with the laws. They would be eliminated, relegated to the fifth division. So I got to be there. And then when the game was about to start, the referee didn't start the game because there was no police. In Brazil, especially in the state of Sao Paulo, you need to have the police, not only the city police, the state police in the game. And they,
See, I was watching this on TV, and obviously the commentary was in Portuguese, so I didn't know what was going on. I'm just like, why are they panning to the police? It's like an attack going on. Like I was kind of concerned for your safety. I'm like, what in the world is going on?
yeah, and I couldn't communicate with you because I was broadcasting the game. I tried my best to articulate with you, but and it was funny that during the hiatus, during the wait, Real Bronco fans were like hoping the police did not show up, so there would be a forfeit by Calleiras because they're the home team. So if they couldn't provide the security for the game, they would have considered a loss, a 3-0 for Real Bronco. So the fans were like fans are messaging me like, no, please police don't show up, please police don't show up. But
So
after
that's insane.
yeah, like I understand the fans. They were like, "Please, we want to get this win. Please, we want to get this win." But then the police, the city police show up, but they weren't enough. Then the state police show up, and then that was enough. Then after 45 minutes of wait, game actually started. And wow, the first 10 minutes, as probably witnessed, were a roller coaster. Real Branco got a goal that was disallowed by offside. First, I thought it wasn't, but then the guys on the studio said they were offside because the goalkeeper went further. Then there was only one player in the line of offside. And literally a minute later, after that, Rio Branco, you know, suffer a goal that was very heartbreaking. Very,
Yeah,
but it was beautiful.
and to me, early on, I'm going to use some player numbers here.
Okay,
Number two, yeah, number
well,
two
what
on
team?
the right side for Rio Bronco,
Oh, Einstein. His name is Einstein. Like the
Einstein.
Einstein, like
I,
ice, like the physicist.
Yeah, it was interesting to me. And obviously he was closest to the camera, so I was very fixated on him. To me, he had a very roller coaster of a game because I thought early on some of the passes he was trying to make, I was just like, where were you trying to go with the ball there? And it seemed like early on, like the organization was just not there on Rio Bronco, especially on that goal because like Kairas just when they were able to turn over the ball and they just their counterattack there was so deadly. And it seemed like for about the first 20 minutes, Kairas was in full control of the game, and the Rio Bronco had no chance.
Yeah, but thank God Rio Branco has probably the best goalkeeper in the tournament, Joel Azari. Like Rio Branco fans says, what is he doing here? He's such a good goalkeeper. He should have been in the better league, but because he's so good, like he made a save in the 20th minute that I couldn't believe he did.
Oh God, yeah, I mean he was fantastic. And that's about like around the 25th, 30 minute when I realized, oh, Rio Bronco could come back in this because they were starting to get pressure. They were starting to consistently get the ball up. And that number the Einstein, he had one run like he was able to get through two defenders and he got up on the right side and he really just had put himself in a good position to get one of the best opportunities there in the first half. And that's what I realized. Okay, they could actually run on this team, and because it looked like to me, Kairos early on was the more athletic team, But it seemed like by the end, Rio Branco was more conditioned.
Oh yeah, and I think that one of those actions on the right side, there was a cross, and Leo Alves, number 5 of Rio Branco, a player that with so much passion, a player with so much determination. I really like him, but he wasn't playing well in the first half, and then he lost a bridge. I was like, damn, like not him. Like he was the one who deserves the goal because if he scored, it'd be like he was playing badly, but then he scored, then he was like his confidence would go up. But I guess Rio Branco losing just by 1 goal in the half ended up being a good result. Like I interviewed Caeda's coach after the match. He was like, in his opinion, Caeda's coach said we should be winning Rio Branco by 3 or 4 goals. Like we dominated in the first half, but we couldn't capitalize, and that was deadly on the second half.
Yeah, and I'll say this: Harris was lucky to be leading at halftime because the last 10, 15 minutes, I mean, Rio Branco had multiple opportunities to equalize. Um, and, most important, as you said, that to only go down 1-0, like I knew that second half was going to be very important. And you could just tell, like, it was building up. I felt like it was kind of a slow start to the second half, a lot of ball in the midfield. But, between the 60th minute and the 70th minute, the magic struck.
Yeah, like first of all, praise to Valmir Israel. He made the right call. He made a change in halftime that he pulled up his number 10, which wasn't like an offensive midfielder, it was like more of like a defensive midfielder. Because his strategy was like Nick, like I know I know how much I'm gonna be a lot of like use a lot of soccer kind of and like a lot of soccer strategy kind. His first like half strategy was let me build on defense, trying to find a set piece to capitalize on a goal and strengthen our defense on the midfield. But his strategy didn't work because he conceded a goal and then the team couldn't react. Then he pulled up a defensive midfielder and pull up a not a striker, like kind of like a like a player that was like an offensive midfielder to a like we call like a fake 9, a guy who's in offense but he's not like a striker, which was the number 20, Gabriel Argentina, and he fit in really well into the game, especially by when Rio Branco started dominating. Because when Rio Branco scored the first goal, all 4 players that were in the offense participated. Number 9 passed to number 11, the pass to number 20, the pass to number 7, the score. So it was like the first time I saw Rio Branco developing an offensive play that was so well structured that the goal ended up happening. But that happened because of the change Valmir how the coach made in the half, I believe.
Yeah, and I could tell that difference there in the second half. Like the organization began to take shape, and it looked like a different team. It looked like a very different team.
Yeah, because they were afraid to play like probably they were in the first half. And I understood why he tried to be more conservative in the first half because he was trying to like, hey, let me try to go a counterattack, set piece, and get the goal and be on defense. But that strategy wouldn't work because they were behind 1-0. But then what was surprising for me for Rebranco was how Rebranco capitalized on the momentum because not only they tied the game, they got the second goal right after the first to get that going. Like in
Yeah,
sports, that you need to get the momentum going.
and I didn't see that coming. I thought by a certain point there around before the first goal, like okay, they're going to be very, very lucky to even come out here with a draw. I didn't see y'all scoring 2 goals there, especially in the quick succession. And but I will admit though, the set pieces, honestly, like on the free kicks, they weren't bad all night. Like I remember there were 2 or 3 in the first half that were very close to being goals.
And that's something I always kind of was a point that I was criticized. Like Rio Branco should be better set pieces. They like last week, for example, they were terrible, terrible, but they improved. And it's funny, Nick. Like they deserve that win because first they practice on rainy, cold mornings here in Americana. I witnessed. I was there covering the practice in the cold, rainy mornings, and the things that Valmir Israel did on the practice were actually implemented on the games. That's why they needed to make a change in the in the head coach position, because the previous coach did not did that. Like, even on the in the interview after the game, Volmir Hal said something that I knew all along. Like, Marcos Paulo Gripe, Rio Broncos former coach, he might be knowledgeable at soccer, but he wasn't implemented in a way that players were understanding his ideas to do a better game, to perform well. I think Volmir Israel is like, I need to make my ideas understood on the field. I mean, I think, of course, when you win, everything looks great, but that win was totally deserved. I just say this, like, when I was at halftime, I was like all over the place. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna be the broadcaster of a relegation game for Bronco on the road, on a city that has zero tradition in soccer. Nobody there care about the game in the area, Dick. Nobody. There were like there were the stadium was surrounded by houses, and I wasn't see one single person coming out of the house to go to the stadium. Like, nobody cared. Like, the streets there were empty. Like, I even joke on the broadcast, I never seen such a non-game atmosphere in a sporting event like I saw yesterday.
I mean, I could tell. I mean, I was just watching. I'm like, how many people are at this game? Like 10?
I was trying to find what we call the financial statement of the game. It was like, like, see how many tickets were sold, but they still hasn't released. But for my, like, body count, it was Rio Branco had about 30 fans, 20 to 30, 20, like 25 fans. Calleras had about the same. But Rio Branco was the visiting team. Calleras was the home team. But they had
Jeez.
the same number of fans. Like, from what you saw on TV were Rio Branco fans. Rio Branco fans were on the opposite side of the press box.
Yeah, so because I figured that was the road sign, because I could see the Rio Broncos sign. Except they never panned over to the home team. But the
Yeah,
fact, just so why does Kairos? Why don't they care?
this team is probably made by what we call here businessmen, or some sort of a, they create these teams to try to get players to get sold. They're like, that's the main idea. Like, I I don't know actually who's behind the team. I didn't see anybody on the press box who, like, hey, I'm the president, I'm the GM. Like, I didn't see anybody like that. Like, if you ask me why do they have a team, I don't know. They just do. Like, I truly don't know. But because there's no involvement in the city, there's no promotion. They don't promote the team. They don't do anything to, like, say, hey, Calleras, we're here. We're a professional team here. Root for us. Like, I was driving around the city, like, getting to the stadium. There were no signs of, hey, there's a soccer game. Like, nothing, nothing, nothing.
I mean, that's insane. Because I know from at least from what you described, like down in Americana, after you got Rio Bronco, and then you had Santa Barbara, and you have the two teams that have a very passionate derby, and they have a lot of fans in those towns.
Yeah, like, from the level where they play, like in the fourth tier in the state. Yeah, that's true. But it's sad that we have to encounter those teams that, even the people that were running the stadium, they weren't used to, visiting radio station coming to their stadium. They just didn't know where to put my, me, my commentator, my reporter. Because they weren't used to visiting radio stations going there, because they're so used to playing games that are non-relevant, and
Yeah,
that's
because
that's
I was wondering why there was no video feed, because it was just the audio. So I
oh
figured it was
oh
probably.
no, that was the internet connection, because I had to use my LTE, my 4G for my phone, and I was prioritizing the audio quality than video quality. And since I had to send my audio signal back to the AM radio station, I didn't want to risk putting a like a webcam with the video feed, and then made the audio not as good. Like, that's my was my thing. But it was, if you had video, you would have seen 10 minutes before the game, a, a, a guy, I can say like a guy, I don't know what he do. He show up to my press box saying that I shouldn't be there. There was like a VIP section, some kind. I was like, hey, dude, I asked all the people that were here, where should I go for a broadcast game, and they pointed out to here, and that's where I went. So you can't kick me out 10 minutes before the game, where I have all my equipment installed, and I'm literally on the air right now. And my reporter helped me even point out this logical fact.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounded like a dumpster fire of a game to go to. But I tuned into the end of the broadcast. I was popping in and out, like just leaving my comments, and I had to listen to the end. And you, for like a solid minute at the end of the game with the final whistle, you were just shouting. And what were you shouting? Because I didn't know what you were shouting, but I could just
Uh,
tell that you were very
uh,
passionate.
Let me. From me where I remember, it was like Real Broncos still alive. Real Broncos still alive. I even want to listen to myself again if I can, because I even wanted to remember what I said. But was something on the margin of Real Broncos still alive and we are big. Like I even want to go back to my broadcast to see what I was saying, because probably was something emotional.
Yeah, and it was an interesting experience for me watching it because I know how much this means to you, but like I'm still learning about everything down there, and it's just and seeing it unfold and just with the atmosphere that or the lack thereof that was there, but still like knowing what was at stake for your club. I mean that was I mean it was riveting for me to watch, just in terms of just knowing how much you needed that win.
No, yeah, because like, you know, in the halftime, me and my colleagues on the radio, we were like, oh my god, this is gonna be a dark day. We're gonna bracket. Like, I was hopeless, to be honest. I really was hopeless. I was like, we're done. We're doomed. Goodbye. That's it. I'm gonna broadcast Real Broncos. You know, relegation. But they're like, I think I found the. Let me see. I think I found the. Let me. It's loading, but and I had to be there. Let me see. Oh, I think I'm going back a little. I think almost there. I think here it's still loading, but and to see the reaction of the fans, like I got a lot of calls and even a lot of praise from people in the media here in America, kind of saying like how you handle your emotional emotions, and that was probably one of the biggest calls I had in my short career. Call a team that had so much prestige and so much history in my hometown, and call a game that everybody thought was done. And even the president of Rio Branco posted an interview that I did with the player that scored the winning goal, that literally said to me, "Everybody thought we're dead. We got the win, but the battle isn't done yet, and we need the fans that criticize us all week to show up to the game on Saturday, because Rio Branco still hasn't qualified yet. The win on Sunday was like, hey, we avoid relegation and we got back into the qualification zone in the group 4. But Rio Branco, like, so the scenario was, and I'm gonna pull up to you. So Rio Branco's as you see, in 4th place, and if Rio Branco wins, he goes to 3rd place. Good, great. If Rio Branco ties, then he needs the 5th place Paulista to at least tie with 2nd place Union Barbarense. And everybody's here saying you cannot count with your rival. It's like if in order Tennessee to go to the SEC championship, they needed a Florida win over Vanderbilt. Like, do you really can count on it? And like Florida is already like out.
Yeah, like I definitely wouldn't trust Vanderbilt to do me one there. Do me a solid because because I've been in that spot like 2016 LSU Florida, and LSU lost by a point. to Florida and knocked us out of the SEC East. So I've been in that spot because yeah, man, it certainly is hard to do. But
But I'll say I guess what I was saying at the end, like Real Bronco's still alive. And what I wanted to say is like Real Bronco is big. Real Bronco has a big brand. Real Bronco is one of the teams that is not being well managed in the last, I say, 7 years, but it still has a lot of potential and a lot of name recognition. Like again, Real Broncos stay in the first division in the state for 17 years, something that is really hard to be deal with. Even teams in Campinas like Guarani and Ponte Preta couldn't done that. Like only the top four, like Santos, São Paulo, Corinthians, and Palmeiras, you can expect to be in the first division in the state every time. But teams in the countryside, you just can't. Even Ponte Preta, which is in Campinas, is in the second division nationally, was relegated last year to the second division in the state.
yeah, and as I'd say this, that energy they came out with in the second half, if they can bring that over to this game against Amparo, I mean, I don't see why they can't at least get a draw there.
I don't
And
want to count it. I don't want to count in a draw because I don't want to have to count on the rival. I just don't. Like you just don't want to think like you're tying like, but you have to again. Paulista has lost their last three games. They're complete shambles. That's one thing that I guess is good, and they're playing at home, which is bad because the crowd is not going to be on their side. There's going to be a lot of angry crowd. They're coming to this game like hopeless.
yeah, um, I mean, to me, it sounds like y'all are in a good spot. Um, because I saw a lot of fight. It sounds like the new coach knows what he's doing, and hopefully that gets y'all into that next round and avoids that relegation, and
Yeah.
maybe it could be a springboard. So
Yeah, the sad part is that Rio Branco will be only free from relegation when they advance to the third round. So, but I just didn't want to I just didn't want Rio Branco to be relegated yesterday in a city that has nothing like any connection to soccer. A city that I'm sorry, any Calleiras fans or Calleiras, uh, like people that live there, but it would be really, really sad. It would be really, really, really humiliating to be relegated there, like eliminated, relegated there. Like that win brought me joy, brought me hope, and but one point that is really makes me scared that Rio Branco still hasn't won a game at home this season. They play four games with three, not one, three ties and one loss. The loss was our biggest rival, Union Malaysia. And it's sad is Rio Branco has not won a home game in a year, in 1 year. The last home win was on June 25th, 2022.
well, I'm gonna say this: if y'all win on Saturday, you have to storm the pitch.
Uh, I wish we could, but the fines and we can even get punishment. But I guess I would, but I'll be working, so it wouldn't be professional on my side. But definitely that
Yeah,
deserves.
yeah. I mean, it would just be a pretty wild finish. But anyway, congratulations. Um, it was a great win, and hopefully y'all can get it done again.
But you have to at least watch a little bit of every Real Bronco game. You're lucky. You are our lucky man. You're
Yeah, I guess so.
lucky.
What time is it this week?
It's on Saturday, 2 p.m.
Okay,
Saturday, 2 p.m.
I'll have
All
to try.
games,
I'll try my best.
all games are going to be on Saturday, 2 p.m. So at the same time, it's going to be Rio Bronco game, Paulista game. All the games going to be at 2 p.m. So it's going to be a roller coaster of emotions.
Oh, absolutely. Um, yeah.
And
So
and last topic is the dumpster fire call of Brazil national team coaching search, because for me it is ridiculous that Brazil's gonna be uh, Ancelotti's little bitch. I know Jason said on our WhatsApp group that he even offered himself to coach for a year before Ancelotti got there. But Brazil is too big of a brand to be waiting for a coach, no matter what coach it is. It's like if Alabama or Dallas Cowboys were like, okay, we're gonna wait for this coach to come, even though if you are not 100% sure if he's gonna come, like, come on, like you're effing Brazil, like you won 5 World Cups, you are one of the biggest brands in soccer, you're home of Pelé and Neymar and Ronaldinho, like you should be better than this. Like, I don't know. Like, I know Ancelotti is a successful coach. He won all the major leagues in Europe. He won European League with Real Madrid and Milan. But I don't know. I feel like it's humiliating to see Brazil waiting for a coach that wasn't express did not express total interested to be coaching Brazil.
Yeah, it seems to me, and I understand this would be an extremely hard get, but like Pep Guardiola from Man City,
Oh,
like that seems to be that's like the John Gruden of this coaching search
yeah, like
for Brazil.
Brazil should be going after him first, and if he said no, then maybe Ancelotti. But I think Brazil's going after Ancelotti is because he was a coach that used a lot of young Brazilian players really well. Like he was able to use Eder Militão, Rodrigo, and Vini Jr. in such a good and productive way with Real Madrid squad that maybe he can replicate that in Brazil. And he's a really good coach in the playoffs too. So that's the two things that probably the CBF, the Brazilian Confederate Brazil Federation, is looking at. That's what I think they're thinking about.
Yeah, it's just weird that they're being very tacit. So right now with their search, because it just seems
Oh,
like you would want to be putting yourself in a good position for 26.
Speaking of the devil, hello, Jason Wyrick. Did you got my comment about? I mentioned you, man, because I know you supported the idea of waiting for Ancelotti. I do not. I think Brazil should go after Brazilian coach, give a chance for Renato Gaúcho, even Fernando Diniz, which is a very controversial, crazy coach that is implementing different ideas and he's trying to play more like a old style soccer. But I understand what they're doing. I just don't like it.
Yeah. Also, while we're on the topic of international soccer, what and I should have put this in the U.S. section. What is the USA doing rehiring Greg Berhalter?
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, we are hosting the next World Cup. Like you should be going all out right now to see if you can go deep, and it just seems like that we're just going to be selling for another round of 16 appearance.
I think US should be aiming high for a coach, trying to get Mourinho or uh, um, Pochettino or like a big brand. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, like literally, we're the United States. We should be able to pay for any soccer coach we want. In theory, right?
yeah.
And that might be an
I
arrogant American thing for me to say, but like we're the United States of America. We should be able to get like any coach that truly would want us. And it just seems like you need to go outside of the American tree to truly get someone who's gonna put you in a great spot. And Jason said, Jose Moreno would be that guy.
but I think that's a problem of Brazil, United States, and other federations is that they don't want a coach that challenge them. They want to. It looks like both Brazil and US. They want to find a coach that can have a good look, but not change the mentality. And I both US and Brazil Federation are ridiculous.
Yeah. And there's a reason why Brazil hasn't won in 20 years and why the U.S. has never won. So
Yeah.
it's an unfortunate truth of the matter. But maybe they'll be wrong and they'll be competitive in 26. But
Yeah.
We will find out. But and also I saw Mexico too. They fired their coach. So lots of changes in international football right now.
Yeah, especially after losing to the US again. 3-0.
Yeah, tries a zero. And hey, it's nice that the U.S. got to play their Canadian match against Canada last night without delays for racial slurs. So, um, you know,
Yeah.
because I mean the Mexican fans, I mean, my goodness, those people cannot act.
They just
I
can't.
mean, like if you chant that Pacific chant, you're gonna get in trouble. But they can't help themselves. It's wild. They literally step on the rake every single time.
And it looks like Mexican Federation also. They don't know what they're doing. They run coach after coach after coach.
Yeah, I think another country that is they just it's weird because like they can't ever get past the round of 16. They have the talent to do more there. They just never do. So I don't know. The American continent teams outside of the messy Argentinian team last year, just lots of confusing moves.
Oh yeah, we'll see what happens. Uh, in the, I mean, Brazil's gonna play tomorrow against Senegal, friendly game. And just to finalize it, I don't understand why you don't have CONCACAF and CONMEBOL Nations League like you have in Europe. Like it would have been like playing competitive against North American teams since we can't play European teams would be nice because Brazil have to play stupid friendly game after stupid friendly game, while in Europe they play competitive games all all season, like all like 4 year hiatus between one World Cup and the other.
Yeah, I mean that would keep that iron sharpens iron. And I think it would create some great matchups. And so I think it would help the U.S. and Mexico get better. You know, to have to play Brazil and Argentina and everyone
Yeah.
else.
Oh, Jason made a suggestion. Miguel Herrera for US. I don't know how much a Mexican coach would have fit in the US style. I would love to see it. I would I think an Argentinian coach will be good for US because if you think about Tata Martino, it would be a great man because he had success in Atlanta. He did not have success in Mexico, but I think he can do a good job in US.
And I'm just going to take your word on that because I'm not familiar with everyone's styles and stuff. I'm still a novice when it comes to all this, but
No, but
I know who Mourinho is, so I'd be a fan of that.
what I'm saying about Martino is because he has success in America. So American fans, especially Atlanta United fans, will be like, "Hey, he's a good coach. Like he has the name recognition in America already. He like it's like Georgie. He's like Jorge Jesus. You know, if like it's actually George Jesus. Like he has success in Flamengo. He's in Europe right now, but I think he'll be a good fit for Brazil national team because he's an European coach, different mentality, but he knows the Brazilian soccer. He coached successfully when he was in the biggest team, Flamengo. It's like Tata Martino. Tata Martino is a well international coach that coached in the MLS, won the MLS Cup. So I think Tata Martino should be a name for it. And Jason Mark pointed out to my suggestion. Gold Cup Nations League winner should play against. Yeah, that's true. America's
Yeah, that would be
Cup.
a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun. That would be a great idea. That's true. I think I don't understand why Brazil and Argentina do not go play in the Gold Cup. Brazil played Gold Cup one time. I think it was 2001, I believe, and they lost to Honduras. Let me check, but I think it was that year. Or 2000. I want, but I remember Brazil played that year. I truly remember because Brazil lost to Honduras and that was one of the most humiliating losses Brazil ever had.
Oh yeah, some of those Gold Cup losses. We lost to Jamaica one time back in like 2015, I think. And it's just like
Oh, I was at that
seriously,
game. I was
seriously.
at that game. I was at that game. I was in Atlanta for that game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Trinidad and Tobago and some of those other losses. Like some of these islands have like the population size of like the Chattanooga metropolitan area, and you're telling me the U.S. cannot beat them? Like it's, I mean, I guess it's like England losing to Iceland, a
And
few years
just
ago at
to
Euros.
I just want to correct myself. Brazil lost to Honduras in the America Cup. They had some teams from North America. They had Mexico, Honduras. Let me see if the U.S. was in it. I think U.S. wasn't on it, but there was Mexico and Honduras. And Honduras beat Brazil 2-0. And I remember Felipão saying, like, in a year, nobody's going to remember the loss. And nobody remembered because Brazil won the World Cup, so nobody care about that loss. But that's true. Like and that Gold Cup 2015 should have been Jamaica and Panama final because I remember Mexico got really big breaks from the referees that game. Really big
Yeah,
breaks.
well, that just shocked me when it comes to CONCACAF competitions.
Oh yeah. But that's it for tonight's Two Countries for
Tonight's
America Sports episode 82.
the only podcast that talks about both American and Brazilian sports. For Gustavo and Tomazeli down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nicola in Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. And thank you so much for watching and listening to Two Countries to America's All Sports. Have a good one.